Just hear the thunder in the distance. That way, that way, that way. Important for a dog to learn a bit of Russian. That way. Tilly has been here long enough now. Yeah, okay. To wear her own tracks through the grass. The kangaroos do the same. Maybe they use each other's. It could be. That's Tilly's track. Oh, and there's Tilly. Time to go home before it rains on us. Look at you, you filthy old cat. You poor old boy, rolling in the dirt. And you're a good girl, Tilly, yes you are. Yes, you're a good pup. So, we're going to go and have some dinner? Come on, Keith, let's have some dinner, mate. Come on, Keith. Well, that's good timing. Just got home as it started to rain a little bit. Well, I asked for it, and that's a bit more like it, isn't it? The gutters can't cope with it at this point, but hopefully we'll get a bit into the tanks. Right then. Good afternoon, everybody. Gonna go for just a very short Sunday ride. Good girl, eh? Motor is still cold, so a little bit of choke on for a little while. Tilly's excited. We haven't been on the bike for a week or two again. It's been too hot. Kitties. There you go, mate. So it's Sunday afternoon, and as you can see, I'm wearing a jacket and gloves. It's gone from, you know, like upwards of 40 for weeks, you know, to about 25 today. That's interesting. What are you doing, Tilly? What are you doing? I haven't spoken on video for a while. I've forgotten how to speak, probably. Yes, it's been really the dog days of summer, you know. 40 up to 45 one day. It's the hottest so far. And suddenly we had a little bit of a build up, then a storm. Not much rain in it, only about 11 mils, but everything cooled down rapidly. It must have been a cold front. And today it's about 25 degrees. Last night it was about 10 degrees. Had to drag a blanket out. And so yeah, here we are with the jacket and everything on. Which is kind of nice. Instead of being boiling hot all the time. Oh, I have to say I actually prefer, when I make videos, I prefer the sound of the bike when I put the mic in my pocket rather than here in my face. And to me the sound's important, you know. I'd much rather hear the bike sound good, or as well as possible, than to speak. Because the longer I spend out here in the bush with a dog and a cat and kangaroos, the less I can speak anyway. Actually, it's not true. I tend to when I run into people, I tend to babble at them a bit. So yeah. No news on the BMW front, though the weather was a bit cooler. Yesterday, so I sort of started to have a bit of a look at it again. The top rear mounting point, which goes from the, actually, now that I say that out loud, I assume it goes from the bottom part of the subframe up, but it's still about 2 or 3 inches below the seat rail. So I don't like the way it sits, and it's like a clamp scenario, of course. But the clamp isn't closing equally on both sides, kind of thing, I don't like the way it sits. However, and I'm going to pull that off and just start looking around there to make sure there's nothing breaking or anything. I was thinking last night, I don't like, okay, the scenario is with the K100, because the motor itself it takes the place of a full cradle frame. What was that? A cat, I suppose. you know, you've got to have a subframe. Now the subframe, I suppose, limits where you can put your mounting points. And in the case of this particular bike, my old K100, in the case of this particular bike, I feel like both the top mounting points are mounted too low, which potentially allows for the opportunity of the more bike above those points, the more potential it has to move, theoretically. And I wonder whether that, is causing the issues that it's got. I'm clutching at straws, it's pretty. I don't really know what to do with it. I feel like I probably ought to just pull the sidecar off altogether and start again. I suppose that's the smart thing to do, isn't it? I suppose. Anyway, life here in the bush goes on. Summer's slowly coming to an end. Tilly's going pretty well though. She injured her back left leg the other day chasing that bunny. So she's had to live a bit quietly for a few days, not throwing the ball or anything. I don't even know where we're going today. We're just going in for a little ride, short ride. It's already sort of, getting on to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so we'll just see how it goes. Keeping the speed down a bit because there's been a lot of skippies around of late. Tilly's a good girl. So the world is falling apart. Donald Trump has been elected. as president, which came as a surprise to some and no surprise at all to others, I guess. He's I should have checked my air pressure. Tyres. Feels a bit squirrely. Yeah, you know, so the war in the Ukraine goes on. You can't believe anything anybody says, essentially, on the internet about it. The commentators, the vloggers, the news services from different countries, etc. They've all got an agenda, and they all contain elements of truth. But if you look at the Ukrainian type ones, the Ukraine's winning the war. If you look at the Russian ones, the Russians are winning the war. I'm pretty sure the Russians are winning the war. Yeah, strange thing. I mean, I don't know what Trump's agenda is. I'm thinking maybe he's trying to sort of... I mean, I think he's mad, but it doesn't mean he's any madder than anybody else. You know, I mean, Putin's mad. Zelensky's a bloody mad bastard as well. Like, he's just he's another crook, you know. People tend to forget that Ukraine was known as the third most corrupt country in the world when the war started. We've all somehow forgotten that and trying to paint them with this sort of, you know, squeaky clean brush. You know, it's like the Russians are behaving very badly. They're bastards. Putin's mad. He's evil. But I'm not going to say the Ukrainians are a whole lot better. I saw this video on YouTube the other day, German one, and they were interviewing a young German guy who'd been fighting for the Ukrainians for some time, you know, and he was quite disheartened by the Ukrainians. It felt like that the foreign legions were being sent out as cannon fodder to do the work, while the Ukrainians sat and played with their phones. You know, that's one perspective. Unfortunately, this guy, a footnote to that video was that he killed himself, shot himself. I'm really rambling disjointedly here, sorry about that. Forgot what gear I'm in. You know, I mean, the Europeans are kidding themselves if they think that Putin's going to come to the table. I mean, he's winning the war. You know, he doesn't need to go to the table at this point. Maybe Trump wants these talks to fail so he can sort of squeeze his way as another step toward America becoming more isolationist again. It's not for me to know. The only thing I know, as I said, is you can't really trust any of them. You know, the Germans are... Like, Europe is definitely waking up to itself. But it's going to take them years to develop an industrial base again to actually, you know, feed a military machine. And, you know, like my recent trips to Germany tell me that Germany is in no way mentally prepared to fight a war. The Germans are just soft. You know, they want to be home in time for dinner. Okay, another friend of mine's here, but they have aptitude. The Germans, they certainly have an aptitude to getting warlike. There's a phrase going round for a while that Oscar Pistorius, the defense minister, said Deutschland muss kriegstüchtig werden. Kriegstüchtig. It's like warlike. Germans are not like that anymore. They're just too spoiled, too rich, too comfortable. And the country is just overrun with other influences, you know. The UK armed forces, like the Bundeswehr, you know, is really run down. They're probably going to have to. Everyone keeps dancing around this whole idea of conscription. You know, the Australian Armed Forces, the Australian Defence Force, it can't fill its manpower gaps now, let alone when it starts actually acquiring and putting into service all this new equipment. Sooner or later they're going to have to bring back conscription, and the UK will have to do the same. I'm told its armed forces are very under strength, under resourced. The Bundeswehr is definitely like that. There's the smell of fresh tar. Yeah, strange stuff. I mean, Western society is in decline, and Russia knows that, China knows that, India knows that. India's a dark horse in these things. Yeah, if the Russians waited around long enough, Western society will collapse anyway. It's probably one of those videos that I'm just not going to post. I don't know what any of the regular people who watch my videos, what their political views are. You know, I used to be quite, when I was younger, I was a bit right-wing, just typical Australian, you know, conservative type stuff. Then I went quite left-wing, and now I'm sort of somewhere back in the middle, mostly because the left-wing, or what the right-wing describes as the left-wing, what that represents has got nothing to do with the left-wing. You know, the socialist and left-wing people, they fought for things like freedoms and decent pay and decent work hours, because the right wing, the capitalist entities, you know, they got away with murder for ages, you know, just cheap, nasty labour and conditions and stuff like that, made fortunes, and they had to stop. And I see that situation developing again, actually, in Australia at least, you know, where like the top 1% of rich people in Australia owns 25% of the wealth. You know, it's just, it's unsustainable. It's the sort of thing that ends up in like the Russian Revolution. look at my Sidecar tyre this morning, and I was very surprised, or shocked almost, to find that it's bloody nearly bald on the outside, which I guess means I've got too much towing. It hasn't done that many Ks. Less than a year, I would think, for that tyre. You know, and a couple of thousand or so Ks, that's about it. I think we'll stop up here and let the dog have a run around. Park the girl in the shade. What do you think, Tilly Pup? Hey? What do you reckon?